Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. It is on once again. It is yours truly, Bakri John Boy. I am the founder of EY Pele Movement. EY Pele Movement Ministries. We focus on your spiritual, your physical, and your financial well-being. My beautiful Queen Amani Jumboa is the co-founder. And on tonight, we have author Edward Onuchi in the building. He is the author of Free the Land. And as you all know, we're about African centered education. Okay, that's what we focus on because we recognize that we are literally out of our minds. And that's what causes problems amongst us as Africans throughout the diaspora on the global level. Okay, so we have to, Sankofa, we have to go back and fetch that which we have been cut off from, not lost. I know a lot of people say lost, okay, but it's not like a coin, okay, where you can misplace your culture. No, we have been cut off from an African mind, and we have the right, because that's what we are, okay, to connect with our mindset. And on tonight, um, we have a brother that's on. He truly is a tool within the community that can help us to reconnect with that. And not only that, as you all know, for those of you who follow us, we are a solution based ministry. Okay, we don't believe in just complaining about the problems and then we walk away and we still don't even have any remedy for our social ills that has been plaguing us for centuries. Okay, I believe personally, me hearing this good brother on the Griot with brother Kofi and brother Sean. Okay, the reason why I brought him on is because he is an answer, okay, to our problems, and that's education. An author is a powerful tool because they bring information to help to shape our minds. Okay, our mindsets is shaped by information. And he is definitely one that can help us to reconnect with that. Good brother, how are you doing on this evening, man?
Hey, peace and blessings, bro. I'm fantastic, man. Thanks so much for having me. How are you doing?
Hey, you welcome, my brother. All is well. All is well. Thank you for asking, man. We give thanks around here. We blessed, man. Too blessed to be stressed. We don't
Exactly.
have bad days. We just have some challenging things that happen throughout our good day, man. So, yes, sir.
Glad to
You
hear it.
ready to rock?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get to it, man. So, again, you're the author of Free the Land. It's a very powerful book. I heard you sharing the information in regards to your literature on, as I aforementioned, the Griot with Brother Sean and Brother Kofi Pazai. And so, I had to bring you on, man. It really was some very powerful content. Like I said, you were giving solutions to our problems, man. So, let's talk about the backdrop. Tell us about you, Professor Edward Onuchi. Talk to us
Okay.
about you, your journey, and how did you get to the point where you're at today? What transpired in your life, to put you on this path?
Oof. That's a big question. I'm actually gonna start. I'm gonna jump right into the controversy. What got me started on the path is a book that people are banning, um, called The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. That's the book that got me started. And the reason why I start there is because I was a teenager in the mid to late 90s. I was a hip hop head, I was an athlete, I was all these things, and I was curious about the history of this country, of the world, but in particular of African people in this country. And I didn't really know where to look. But I like to read. I'd like to read. And I saw this book on the bookshelf at my home called The Bluest Eye. And the reason why it caught my attention is because I was listening to Mos Def and Talib Kweli, Our Black Star. And they have a song on there where they not only reference, but play with some of the language from The Bluest Eye. And also, I feel like they also play with some of the language from another Toni Morrison song book, but that may be a different song. And so I read it and it blew my mind. It blew my mind because as I'm reading it, I'm able to see how I and some of my dear friends and family were exhibiting some of the behaviors that Toni Morrison was pointing out in terms of self-hatred, colorism, those types of things, living up under white supremacy. And to shorten the story, because I could talk all day about this, right? To make the story not too long, after reading that book, I started to question, well, what can I do to change that? You said you're solution oriented, so am I. I started to question, what can I do to change this condition? And for me, I realized I was pretty ignorant. So I was like, well, I need to be in a position where I can study. And I need to be able to not just study, but study with the intent of finding solutions and then figuring out how to put some things together. So fast forward, that's high school. Fast forward, I go to Virginia State University for college. I get the opportunity to do some research on the Black Panther Party. I looked at their survival programs, which started to give me ideas. I started learning, I reread the autobiography of Malcolm X, another book folks want to ban, because I, like many other people, had read it after the movie came out, but I was a child at that point. So I reread autobiography. I start to learn about people like Assata Shakur. And as I'm doing all of this research, mainly on the Panthers, but really just about Black activism from the 60s and 70s, I start to see the name Republic of New Africa. And it caught my attention because even though I wanted to focus my studies on African people in the US, I was very interested in African decolonization movements as well. I was like, wow, I never heard of that. I've been studying what was happening in Kenya. I studied what was happening in Ghana and South Africa. I never heard of this. Come to find out, it's in the US, right? And at this point, I'm going to grad school and I'm thinking about, well, what can I spend a long time researching? What will maintain my interest? What have historians, because I'm a historian, what have historians not focused too much attention on? And this Republic of New Africa became the thing that I started to not just obsess about on a personal, from a place of personal curiosity and me wanting to find those answers, but it became an opportunity for me to really do some research that would help a whole bunch of other people, because nobody had heard of this thing, at least not in my circles. And so as I'm researching, putting everything together for the book, I start to get opportunities to become involved with, first just learning from the elders and listening to them, but also they start putting me in contact with different people. And it, long story short, right? So I wrap this up. I end up
Talk about it, man. Tell
I
us
end up being able to be involved in a number of community efforts. One of them being an organization called Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, and that is an organization that is a part of the legacy of what's in the book. And the rest is history, man. The rest is history. I find ways to get involved locally and contribute to some efforts nationally. I should say the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement is an organization that promotes self-determination, self-defense, and self-respect. And among the many programs that people carry out across the country, one of the major ones is to free political prisoners. And so that became an opportunity for me to start contributing to things in my own little way, right? I was out at the forefront of any of this, but it's able to help people out who are literally every single day trying to get people like Dr. Mutulu Shakur out of prison, right? Which they did successfully. Able to bring some of our other elders who have been locked up for sometimes decades for their political beliefs and activities. They're able to get several of them out of prison. And that's the power of organization. That's why we get involved with things and we figure out where we can help out, because we can actually have an impact on people's lives. And that's just one example of how I've seen people who are active at the grassroots level have a huge impact on people's lives, is bringing them home and reuniting them with their loved ones.
So in your research, what did you come to find interesting to you that was the fuel to your freedom fighting fire, if you would?
Mm. So many things, so many things.
Put it all on the
I
table, whatever
think
you
I
got.
think the I think one of the things that I learned through the research is that it takes humans to do this work, right? Anytime there's a problem, we want a solution, it takes people. But one of the things that I think goes overlooked, and this became some of the inspiration behind the book, and then in turn inspired me, is that people have to figure out how to live according to their ideas. And one of the ways that they live according to their ideas is through thinking about their names, right? It's something that seems small and individualistic, but actually allows people to tap into whole communities of like-minded people, and usually is as the result of the people getting involved in such communities. Another thing that really stands out to me, I talked a little bit about political prisoners, um, but I can just use that example again. Folks have been under attack when people start this thing called a New African Independence Movement, which, because we haven't said it yet, is the effort to take the states of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina and use them as the land base for an independent Black nation state. That's going to draw the ire of the United States government and other people. And so folks were under attack for pursuing those goals. And some of them were lost their lives in the process. Some were exiled, and some remain exiled, and others went to prison, but none of them ever gave up,
Mm,
right? And that's you talked about there's only challenges to a good day. Whew, that helps me thinking about what folks have been through. Helps me put your phrase in context. It's like, yeah, things could be horrible, and thankfully they're not at the current moment, right? um,
absolutely.
and even when they are, how do you keep going, right? That's something that we can
Mm,
learn from these folks. How do you keep going? you
mm,
you
mm.
realize that, okay, but I'm still here, so I have some challenges, but I'm still breathing. How can I make the most of this situation? And if you look at the writings of people like Assad Shakur, if you listen to people who are now out, such as Sekou Odinga, these are some of the things that I hear them say. They found their purpose even behind the walls, and that's what allowed them to keep on, as the old saying goes, keep on keeping on until folks were
Absolutely.
able to bring them home.
Absolutely. So, what and who inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Whew, so many people, so many people. Uh, you know, I gotta always shout out my some of my ancestors. I've got a grandmother who is with the ancestors right now, who was always encouraging me, my siblings, all her grandchildren, just to do what they can, not only for themselves, but for other people. Right. And one of the things that I
Mhm.
like to share about her is before I started to really look into our culture here in the US, before I started to study our history, she was doing things like acknowledging and celebrating Kwanzaa in her own way.
Mm, wow.
And I mean, I guess by the time I started noticing it, it had some popularity, but not nearly the popularity that it has now. Right. So those
Mhm.
types of little things, and I don't want to say little, but those types of things, they may seem like they're relatively minor, but they had an impact on me. And
Mm,
so definitely, in whatever strength my other ancestors give me, is definitely because of them, of course. And then I'm fortunate to have a number of elders in, you know, the I guess I'll say that the activist community, for lack of a better way to talk about it. Fortunate to have some elders in the community who were and continue to be willing to sit down and let me ask questions, share things that they've learned, share encouragement. And so they continually inspire me, even the ones I don't talk to on a regular basis. Every now and then we communicate, but I'm thinking about them all the time. And then there are, like I said, I can go down I'm gonna stop right there because I can talk about this. You're asking me questions about people I love, and I was going to be
man.
like, yo,
that's your passion, man. That's your passion. All right, then. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, why the title "Free the Land"?
Yeah. So that was and continues to be the slogan of the New African Independence Movement. It's that simple. Like I said, they have been trying to gain territory, gain land, political independence, and statehood.
I read that in your introductory for your book on your link on the Instagram page. It was a lot of substance there just in the introductory, man. I must admit, I thought it was a chapter to the book. I thought it was a chapter to the book. I'm serious. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, oh yeah, that's the introductory. I said that's the introductory. I'm like, wow. Seriously, man, it was very informative and very detailed, man. Please continue to talk about
it. Yeah, but you got it. Yeah, I'll just try to spell it out a little bit. And I like to tell this story that I learned from one of my brothers in MXGM. So the New African Independence Movement is founded in Detroit in 1968. After a couple of years, they're in Detroit and talking about we need land in these 5 states. So some of them eventually relocate down to Mississippi in the Jackson area. And when they did that, they were trying to acquire some land, and they wanted to have a land dedication ceremony on that land they were trying to get. They called it El Malik after the ancestor and their major inspiration for the movement, El Malik El-Haj al-Shabazz, or Malcolm X. And so they named the territory El-Haj Malik, right? But as they're celebrating the acquisition or the near acquisition, that's a whole story by itself, of this land, and they're trying to have this land dedication ceremony, they start to talk about freeing the land in a way that, as Chokwe Lumumba says, it almost seems as if it was organic and spontaneous. They're in the heart of one of the states that has great political meaning and value to them. And in the process of traveling to and naming this land again, El-Haj, right? El-Haj Malik.
That's right.
Or just El Malik. Sorry, just El Malik. So in the process of this, it almost seems if the way he tells the story is if it just like the spirit overtook them and free the land became the slogan. And it's something that people have been saying since then, since 1971. And so in terms of the title, that captures the essence of the movement. And so it's fitting. And I must say, if you read the book, you'll notice that, as you said, there's a lot of citations, right? Lots of information in there. And the very first citation, you'll see that I cite a book by Mario Bedelli, one of the founders of the New African Independence Movement, the Provisional Government of Republic of New Africa. And one of his books is also called Free the Land. So it's also homage, it's a nod, it's a shout out to one of the most important ancestors in this New African Independence Movement.
Now, forgive me if you already answered this, but what does free the land mean?
Yeah, just it's liberation time, y'all. You got it. All right, so the land right now. So, all right, I'm gonna go history professor light for just a moment. Okay.
Oh yeah, work it, bro. Work it. I think about Professor Griff, you know, Professor X. When you say,
Yeah.
go ahead, give us that work, bro. Give us that work.
That so many of us know how this country was founded. It we have the myth of the pilgrims and all that, but then we have the actual history that occurred, which was when people from Europe started to come to this land. They were settling on land that was already inhabited by various nations of peoples, and instead of acknowledging and respecting and honoring that fact, instead they start to systematically wage war and remove people off the land where they had been for who knows how long.
Hmm.
In the process of doing that, not only are they waging war with each other, right? The Spanish, the French, the British are waging war with each other over
Mhm.
this land that they're stealing from indigenous peoples in the Caribbean and South America, Central America, and North America, or the United, what's now the United States.
Mhm.
So even as they're doing that, they're bringing Africans who they either straight up stole or who were prisoners of war or whatever the case may be. They traffic them, right? We talk about human trafficking. Let's talk about human trafficking. It's called
Mhm.
the transatlantic slave trade, right?
Yeah, no
Human
doubt.
trafficking. So they're captured, they're removed from their homelands, they're brought to these areas that we now call the Americas,
Mhm.
and this is land that people who are not indigenous to the space are settling on behalf of three at least, well, actually more than three, but the main three for our purposes are the French, the Spanish, and the Brits. They're settling land and conquering it on behalf of these empires,
Mhm.
right? So we're talking about a process that we now call settler colonialism
Mhm.
and enslavement, right?
Mhm.
And,
Absolutely.
and
That's
so we talk,
what came to my mind when you started talking. Say colonization.
yeah, exactly. And so when we talk about when we're talking about free the land,
Mhm.
that's all, like that whole history is wrapped up in this slogan, and the slogan is attempting to undermine, not undermine, because you can't change what has already happened, but not only drawing attention to that history, but trying to create a better position for African and indigenous peoples who
Mhm.
were either brought against their will to the land or who had the land stolen from them. So that's one level of it. But then another level is there were Black people who did have land, right? And all over the country,
Mm.
all over the
Mhm.
country. But we'll
Mhm.
just talk about those states for just a moment.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
And they had their
Let's do
land
it.
systematically taken from them, systematically taken through flat, straight up theft, through dishonest legal practices, through terrorism and community destruction. And the list can go on and on. It was a multifaceted war that was waged against that's been waged against Black people that has left sorry.
You're right.
My brain's working faster than my mouth can keep up right now.
We know, we know, we know what you meant, brother.
Yeah, so through theft, this land that people have had taken from them, and so free the land also calls attention to that. It's just like,
Mhm.
yeah, not only were our ancestors themselves property, but some of our ancestors had land and property, and it's been taken from them, and there's been barely any acknowledgement, even from the
Mm.
so-called friendly Biden government, who still
Mhm.
doesn't do anything for Black landowners and those who have had their land still stolen from them in living memory. So,
Yeah.
in my assessment, free the land can capture all of that.
You know, I love what I really believe personally too that reparations is something that definitely should be put on the table by any person that is soliciting for our vote. And
Mm,
I honestly believe that we should not allow that to slide.
yeah.
You know, although the Congressional Black Caucus has tabled that, you know, it is a fact. They even went publicly and stated it, that, you know, their efforts to do so, of course, has been intercepted by, um, you know, the powers that be. You know what I'm saying? That don't want us to be, you know, liberated, want us to continue to be, you know, at the bottom of the beer barrel, continuously begging for scraps and crumbs, and us fighting each other over that.
Yeah.
They like that.
Yep.
They like that. They like the fact that we feel like only they can stroke the pen, for our freedom, because historically speaking, there's always been a Eurasian hand that has written any type of legislation that has provided some minuscule uh, protection, you know, for us to some degree. But as we all know, that they find their ways to maneuver around uh, that which has been written, you know, by keeping their cohorts in power, you know, like in the Supreme Court, you know, at the federal level, you know, the Supreme Courts, you know, at the state level, you know, and things that, you know, just cornering us in all of those facets of politics, you know, local government, state government, you know, because, you know, the governor writes the state constitution, and many people don't know that. That's why it's so important as well to educate ourselves, to know, you know, your district of attorney, what they do, you know, to know what your commissioner does, and, you know, to know why it's important, you know, to have the right sheriffs in place, you know, all these areas that the racist has cornered is strategic. It's to play chess, man. It's to checkmate us every time, you know, they send one of their people to do their bidding, you know, so that way they won't receive the reprimanding that they should deserve, you know, in a seat of justice. And that's something that, you know, I definitely do know that they do. You know, they literally have woven racism throughout this government. I don't know why people keep saying like, "Oh, that's not American." Like, what's happened today? It really baffles me, and it's very disturbing to hear someone that looks like us say that,
Okay.
when this country was never founded upon morality. Had it been, we would have never came over here for free labor. We would have never been a product that was being sold.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To fund their American dream, right? You know, so that's the reason why, you know, I feel like, you know, your book is certainly a continuum of what our ancestors had been vocalizing for decades. You know, during the civil rights movement, you know, fighting for our freedom, you know, losing their lives over being mistreated, you know, for centuries, you know, and getting up that moral courage to go fight, and even if it costs them their lives, you know, uh, give them liberty, or give us liberty, or give us death. You know what I mean? That struggle, man. And some of us, unfortunately, brother, I think we overlook it today. You know, the things that's happening, like the shooting in Buffalo, and here recently, um, the Dollar General situation that occurred, where, you know, he intentionally went there with a gun, and then again writing these words on the rifle,
Yeah.
right? Just like the young man did, the young racist did, you know, in Buffalo, you know, shooting us with an intent to make it known, you know, that they don't care about us, you know, and that, you know, we should be slaughtered, you know. And I really feel like Free the Land, man, is something that will wake us up consciously and help us to see that what we were facing then, we're still facing now. You know, we may have more rights to a degree, but now they're trying to roll back the clock, you know, to the Jim Crow times, like Ron DeSantis is doing down in Florida.
Mhm.
You know, trying to roll back the clock. You know, don't want your books to be shared in schools. You know what I'm saying? Rolling back affirmative action. And it's sad that some of us don't recognize that. We really think that, discrimination, because a few of us, they allow a few of us to slip through the cracks because of affirmative action. Now they're rolling it back.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk more, man. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. If you like the caveat, you like to add, please
Okay.
do, man. Feel free.
So much to say. I'll go back to the books situation. I had the fortune of being able to participate in the 108th annual conference of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. For those who've never heard of it, ASALH is what we call it. This is an organization that um, uh, Jay, get my names mixed up, Carter G. Woodson helped to start, back in the early 20th century. And if folks aren't familiar with him, he's the one who started Negro History Week. He started the Journal of Negro History and also this organization that is now the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. This year it was in Jacksonville, Florida.
And the miseducation of the Negro.
And he
That's a
wrote the
masterpiece.
Miseducation of the Negro.
That's a
Yep.
masterpiece.
That's why we got to. That's why we got to name some of these authors and some of their books. So we were in Jacksonville, Florida, and one of the things, not only was it in Jacksonville, a month and some change after that horrific murder that you mentioned at the Dollar General,
Mm-hmm.
but this is at a time when some of the things that are being rolled back are basically exactly what we do, right? We teach African American history. We write and study and put out there for the public information about this history so that we can all benefit from it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, and I think all of my colleagues would agree, and I got it from them anyway, so of course they would agree, that everybody benefits from knowing the complicated and oftentimes not very pretty history that has helped shape the moment that we're in even now, right? No one benefits from hiding things because it hurts somebody's feelings. And really, they will always want to say it hurts the children's feelings. No, the parents don't want them knowing this because then they start to say, maybe I don't just have to sit there and take what's dished out to me if it's unjust. Look at all these African Americans who've been organizing for themselves for centuries. And look, they teamed up with the Jewish community in this situation. They teamed up with the Latino community in this. Hey, they were working with poor whites over here. They were working with middle class whites over here, right? They were organized at the point of production for employment rights, for voting rights, all these things.
Wow.
And I'm convinced that the fear isn't that it's going to hurt someone's feelings because they're like, oh man, grandpa and grandma did that. Maybe it will, but that they're going to reject that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, actually, we don't have to do that moving forward. That's, I think, what the fear is. And so we're in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm so proud of this organization because they went to I'm sorry if I get the details wrong. Please, folks, look up, fact check me on everything I'm about to say. Okay. But they went to a park. I think it's the park that was just renamed James Weldon Johnson Park. And they read and had available a lot of books that have been named as needing to be banned or have been banned.
Wow.
Right. In Jacksonville, Florida. And I got to say, because I've never been to Jacksonville, about a block and a half away from where I was staying, I'm walking around and there's a statue, a monument to Andrew Jackson, after whom Jacksonville is named. And if y'all don't know who Andrew Jackson is, one of his nicknames is Indian Killer, right? He waged war against indigenous people. Y'all heard of the Trail of Tears. He's one of the people who's responsible for that. He was a slave owner.
Yeah.
He all the things that we're supposed to ignore about him. He was all of that, and I just refuse. Like, y'all got the statue up there. We're gonna talk about all of who he was, not just that he was this mythical great figure, because he wasn't. He was a white supremacist who preached white supremacy and had the power to act on it and do great harm to other groups of people. And we're not gonna ignore that just because he was a political figure in this country's past, right? We're gonna talk about all that.
Yeah, you just broke something down too. She said, ew. I would just say sugar. Booger. Booger.
Peace. Shout out.
Hey, thank you for tuning in, sister. We appreciate it.
Glad to have
I
you.
didn't know that either, man. You just broke it down. And my wife and I, we definitely have been there in Jacksonville. We didn't visit that particular statue and what have you, but you know, we have family that's there. And I appreciate you for sharing that, man, because I never knew that, man. I'll be the first one to admit that. I did not know Jacksonville was named after him.
Me neither. I read the plaque on the statue. Like, oh, that Jackson. You know, because I had never been there. I didn't have to think about this. And so it's just proximity really matters, right? Actually being there, having the opportunity to walk around a little bit. Oh, that's Andrew Jackson on a horse. Okay. Oh, Jacksonville. It's right there on the plaque. This is named after him. Okay. And you know, of course, it's Jackson, Tennessee as well. So he gets 2. And if you're driving through that part of that state, you'll see the signs like the home of Andrew Jackson, all that stuff. So he matters a lot.
Yeah. And that's the founding, you know, that's the founding, you know, fathers, like people, you know, our people really need to stop saying that. Like, we say that like with a sense of ownership. And I say that all the time, like, they are not your founding fathers. You know,
well,
what I'm saying?
they might be your great grandfather for all we know.
You know, they're not your founding father. I mean, you know, you're not European. You know what I'm saying? And even so, if you have the blood, how did that blood get in you?
Exactly my point.
Voluntary? Did one of your ancestors get raped? You know, like how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? Because of course you can't help what's inside of you, what your ancestors did. But the thing is, was it forceful or was it voluntary? And even then, I still wouldn't be proud of that. I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? We gotta keep our bloodline alive, man. And you know, keep it in the family, man. And I'm saying that because we say the founding fathers, like, as if though, you know, they had our best interests at heart. I'm like, you make no sense saying these things. The centuries of suffering and the discrimination we continue, you know, the misappropriation of funds, you know, the underserved in our communities, you know what I'm saying? People tell you to go back to Africa. I'm like, well, what money?
Yeah.
You know, like some of our people can't even move around the block.
Yeah.
So how are they going to move to Africa?
Yeah.
You know, and it's sad when you have your own kind. This is why we need your literature. So we can truly understand, like, we're still suffering from colonization. Like, we're still suffering from that to date. And just because a handful of us are successful doesn't negate the fact that that's why we have no wealth to pass down to each other. You know what I'm saying? Because of the lack of economics, the lack of financial education, you know, even being stiffed when it came to life insurance, wouldn't even pay out. Even our ancestors who had it wouldn't even pay them out. You know what I'm saying? So constantly being goalies. And for those who don't understand what I'm talking about in the sport of soccer and hockey, the goalie try to stop you from scoring, to keep you from making your goal, to score, to win. And that's what they do. They block us. And it's so easy to say, oh, go start a business and, you know, everything like that. But look at what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, look at what happened when a lot of us go to the banks and we get redlined, where you got more than qualified entrepreneurs who do have, you know, the requirements, but they're still denied based on the premise of their ethnicity. You know, so we have to face this realization that just because a couple of us have achieved great things, don't be fooled. It's called a distraction. When we are allowed to do things at the level, you know what I'm saying, of like what Puffy Combs have done, what Jay-Z have done, because they're billionaires, Rihanna billionaires. But look at most of them billionaires in the entertainment industry. Robert W. Smith is in the tech side, right? And he's a billionaire. How many of us do prestigious things like that and become billionaires? How many Warren Buffetts we have, you know, on our side that represent us? And that's why a lot of us got to wake up. Why don't we have enough people at that level? High achievers in the financial arena. We got plenty of millionaires in sports. A lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of people really don't talk about. A lot of people honestly really overlook. A lot of people overlook. We got a lot of millionaires in sports. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of them are not taught how to maintain their wealth, how to grow their wealth, how to keep the wealth in the family, learning the various strategies like learning trust and, you know, asset protection with trust and, you know, so many economical tools that will be to our advantage. A lot of them not taught that. They make their money, they spend it, they let them spend it, even in the entertainment industry. Oh yeah, by the way, that costs you. Now, why didn't they know that before they did all that spending? Does anybody catch that? Does anybody catch that? Why do they let them do all that spending and then the artists don't even know? And this lawyer is supposed to be representing them. Why didn't the lawyer convey this contract? Why didn't nobody tell these artists that this is how it works? Why? And still we're puppets and still, you know, we tap dance and it's a bunch of buffoonery. We're used to be entertaining foolishness. We got the gangster rap stuff. They just keep using us and playing us. You know what I'm saying? And I look at free the land as freeing our mind too. The land of our mind, man. You know what I'm saying? Liberating those grounds, the ground here. So we can wake up and we can get rid of this American dream out of, you know, everybody, oh, the American dream, the American dream, the American dream. You know what I'm saying? You're going to keep dreaming. If you don't learn how to play the game, you're going to keep getting played because they got the playbook and you just in the game playing. You don't know the playbook. You know what I'm saying? And we better learn the daggone playbook because that's why we keep getting played, brother. It's because we don't understand. They keep throwing us crumbs and we just keep licking them up and eating them up. Well, oh, they gave us this. Well, he gave us what was it? African History Month. You know what I'm saying? I know some of y'all call Black History Month. I just say African History Month. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they gave us that. Oh, he made that a holiday. Yeah, but we didn't get reparations. Yeah. So we just keep taking these crumbs and, oh, just take these crumbs and be satisfied. Then you say something, you got fellow Africans, oh, well, that's all you do is just complain. Y'all not grateful for nothing. That's all y'all do is complain. No, we see the trickery. We see the trickery that they're distracting us with the freaking crumbs. No, I'm focused on the doggone whole loaf. You focused on the slice of bread. You focused on the doggone crumbs. When I'm thinking about we need the whole freaking loaf. You're not going to trick me and distract me with this slice of bread and these crumbs. Nah, it's not over. Like you said, brother, what happened in Rosewood? What about that? They stole our land there. They stole our land in Tulsa. They stole land in New York. They stole land, in
Yeah.
Chicago. They stole land all over this freaking country. So when you say free the land, that's what I think about too. Give us back our doggone land. Like, oh, we're so sorry. Oh, we're sorry. Okay, well, if you're so sorry, where is our money at then for the land that you stole? Give us back. Okay, you put businesses on it. Well, where's the heirs to that land? And you make sure money go to them if you're so sorry. See that we move by this, oh, we're so sorry. Oh, we're really, you are? Okay, well, give it back then.
Yeah. And you know, the reality is when people have power, they don't just give that away. And that's something that the folks who I was, you know, blessed to be able to study, right? I love, always have to put it in those terms because it really is an honor and a privilege to do this research. That's something that they realized. And they realized that they would have to, you know, start to acquire, but at a certain point would have to defend what they are able to acquire. And it's interesting. You were mentioning political positions just a moment ago. And one of the things that you mentioned was sheriff. One of the original strategies of folks who moved down to Mississippi as part of the New African Independence Movement, even before they had the 1968 convention where folks decided, hey, that's what we're going to do, provisional government, New African Independence Movement, they were talking about a political strategy that would move people into areas that were majority Black, and they would start to run people for offices, the primary one being the office of the sheriff. And the reason why they would move them into the office of the sheriff is multifaceted, of course, but the two that I think are most important, one, even though by 1968, Black people supposedly had the right to the vote and supposedly had these 14th Amendment protections for, you know, years before that, that would make sure that their rights under the law would be protected and respected. But we know that neither of those happened. And so the idea was, okay, if we can get some Black sheriffs, one of the roles of the sheriff is to keep the peace. And if there are some thugs who are coming here trying to harass, intimidate, and even kill when folks line up to register to vote or to actually cast their ballot, there's a sheriff there who now has the power not only to enforce the law, and back then it would have been himself, now it'd be his or herself, because we have plenty of women sheriffs now. Not only does that person enforce the law, but the sheriff has the power to deputize others to help. And the brilliance of that is all through our history since, you know, emancipation, since the end of the Civil War. It's been that the sheriffs have deputized white terrorists to, you know, to mass murder, destroy communities and things of that nature. And the way that usually went down was something happened, somebody was either about to get lynched or had been lynched, and the Black community were organized and they were able to acquire whatever arms they could get their hands on, and they would use that to protect themselves. When Black people defend themselves, either to prevent a lynching or to prevent further murder and destruction in the aftermath of a lynching, that becomes grounds, according to the logic of white supremacy, to then inflict or try to, and many times actually successful, you know, just be honest here, just many times successfully inflict even more damage. And again, one of the tools there is, oh, you know, the Black folks are defending themselves. And all of a sudden there's a threat that will be the victims of the very thing that we're doing to them, right? What do? You have a posse already, but then you start to give people the legal authority to do things like disarm them so they can't protect themselves, and to round up and arrest people so that they're removed from the community, so that then the terrorists can come in and do whatever they plan to do without any repercussions, right? That's the brilliance of that plan to get sheriffs, because sheriffs can enforce the law and deputize other people to help enforce the law, right? But now it's going to be our folks instead of y'all bringing terrorists in, sometimes even from out of state, and giving them that power. The other thing with that is I talked about in passing voting. I mean, just the simple fact that now somebody will not stand in the way of unleash water hoses, dogs, etc., when people try to exercise something that was supposed to already be a right. And because y'all didn't get the memo, now here's the Voting Rights Act of 65 to remind you, right? And so that was one of the things they had planned from the jump. So I bring all that up because sometimes when I talk about this idea of the New African Independence Movement, even just as a purely scholarly project, one of the reactions that I get it less now than I did when I first started, but I still get this reaction sometimes. I don't think that would ever work. That's not practical. I'm like, well, actually, it's very practical. Very practical. They're talking about things like vote, get people in office who actually have your interests at heart and who can actually have the power to protect you. And when they can't do it alone, they can deputize you, your mama, and your cousin too to help, so that y'all can protect yourselves and protect your loved ones. Now, with the force of the law behind it, right? And when
I never heard nobody put it in that light, man. That was a very good demonstration of power to use right there. You're the first one I ever heard use, that analogy with the deputy.
Yeah, and not even analogy. I mean, that's exactly how they plan to do it, right? Let's make sure that we're in these positions, places like Lowndes County, Alabama, with the first not the first Black Panther Party, but the Black Panther Party that everybody else stole from or borrowed from, including the Black Panther Party for self-defense. That was one of the things that they pushed. They immediately made sure that they had a sheriff in Lowndes County who was Black, who was responsible to the Black community, which is the majority of the community, so that they would be protected when they try to exercise their basic human and civil rights.
Wow.
It's that simple. It's just practical. Talking about land. Why do you talk about land? Because land in this type of society with this economy is the basis of wealth. If it wasn't, George Washington and them wouldn't have violated treaties with indigenous peoples, breaking British law in order to steal land, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. He was a land speculator. One of the many things he did, he's a land speculator.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I never heard that one either, man.
Gerald Horne's book, Counter-Revolution of 1776, is one of the texts that gets into the complications that led to the U.S. War for Independence, and one of it was people were engaging in activity.
That year. I'm glad you mentioned that year, because just like you said, Independence Day, and a lot of us, we celebrate that like as if though we were independent, when it was Europeans celebrating their freedom from other Europeans. You know what I'm saying? Our ancestors were still enslaved and still working on the plantations. But
and in the shipyards, and in the factory, everywhere.
Yeah, like we walk around with the stars, and I know that's one of the reasons why they really don't want us to know our history. I mean, and a lot of people don't know either that the United States, I've been mentioning this for a while now, we have to wake up about the UN, because they're the ones that's supposed to defend human rights.
Yeah.
Now, how is that possible when the United States of America got their seat in October of 1945? Family, we need you need to grasp that the United States of America was given a permanent seat on the UN in 1945. Does that year ring a bell? We were still fighting civil rights during that time. We were still under Jim Crow law when they got the seat on the UN.
Yeah.
Is that connecting, family? Human rights, the United States sitting on the seat about human rights, but we were still fighting against discrimination over here, segregation.
Yeah. Yeah. And people pointed it out at the time, right? Folks are probably familiar with Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson, W.E.B. Du Bois, folks like this were persecuted for pointing out that contradiction. You know, lost their ability to travel internationally. And for someone like Paul Robeson, that's how he made his money. He was an international superstar.
See.
And if you cut off his ability to travel to do what he does
But
for
it's supposed to be the
livelihood,
land of the free, right?
exactly. And what was his crime? His crime was he was pointing out that very contradiction that you just brought up.
Wow. You know, family, please make sure you get our brother book, Free the Land. It was wonderful for having Professor Onochi
Onachi.
in the building. Did I say it right?
Oh, Onachi.
Okay, Onochi in the building, man. You know, so please make sure you go get the book, you know, Free the Land, literally Free the Land, no specific spelling, you know, to it, you know, it's spelled just the way it sounds. Because I know some of us, we get those words. We'll put a special spelling on the word, you know what I'm saying?
Gotta get creative sometimes.
That's right. It's Free the Land, family. So go check out his book, Free the Land. You know, you can follow him on Instagram. Okay. Right there. Facebook. Information is right there. Brother, you have any last words you want to share with the family on this evening?
Just thanks so much for what you do, trying to bring these conversations to our people in the best ways you can. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. I look forward to building some more.
Bro, we appreciate it. Out in the audience, Sugar Booger. I can't lie, that day cracked me up. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate you tuning in, sis. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us, and we greatly appreciate the feedback. Oh, okay. She said she's been saying it wrong too. But hey, fam, again, thank you once. Remember, on Sundays and Thursdays, I know we have been on, man. My wife and I have been super busy, a lot going on in our personal lives and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, every Sunday and Thursday, you know, we go live. Okay, we have special guests on, or either to be my wife and I, or just myself. But you get the content that you need, you know what I'm saying, to help you to reconnect with an Afrocentric mindset. All right. So that's what we focus on. You know, we're African based, you know, we're unapologetically African. Okay. So this is what we do, you know what I'm saying? And we know that the remedy for us is us. Bottom line. This is for us, by us, to educate us about ourselves. We lack confidence because we don't know our accomplishments. And also, we have to get rid of that colonized mind. So we're here to help you deprogram from that. And we bring on powerful guests like our brother, Professor Edward, you know, here on this evening. And we encourage you, go check out the playlist. Okay, we have a plethora of content that we believe will be of some benefit, not only to you, but to your family. This is the reason why we keep our content clean, because this is a family-based ministry. Family-based ministry. So, you know, the children can even listen to this content. It's easy to be understood, you know, and to be applied. You know, it's very, very, very easy, okay, for you to comprehend and for you to be able to apply it to your life. You understand what I'm saying? So this is a solution-based ministry. We want to thank you all for supporting us, for my wife, Amani, and I. Thank you all for your love and support. Thank for all of you who subscribed and all of you who have joined us on our Instagram as well. I'm gonna put that information up real quick, you know, so you guys can go check us out there as well. And we have a lot of good content there for you. So come on over, come join us. You know, we can learn from each other. We can share with one another. We can bounce ideas off of each other. Okay, that's our email right there. So if you like to be a guest, okay, you will be vetted. We will have to have an interview with you with the cameras on. Okay, so that's the way it works. If you do not turn the camera, if you're not willing to turn your camera on and have a face to face, you will not come on here. All right, we need to know where your mind is at, you know, and what it is that you would like to share with the audience. And we'll be more than happy to do that if you are in your right mind. Okay, and you have the right agenda. Okay, we would love to have you on. All right, so we love you all. We pray you have a blessed rest of your evening and your week, and may your weekend be the same. We are getting on up out of here. Professor Edward, please stand by for a question and answer after this one, my brother.
All right.